Well, hello, hello. Oh, look at this. People jumping on immediately. They missed it. They missed the COVID cabal. They missed the COVID cabal. I think we all missed the COVID cabal. Let's be honest here. I think we all missed the COVID cabal. How could we not miss it? It's such a good time. Such a good time. Look, I don't want people to get the wrong impression here, okay? Before we go into this. I don't want people to think this is going to be a regular thing. That was a prior phase. We can't bring it back for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons, both practical and, if we're being honest here, we can't bring it back just because of the state that we're in right now. However, the war's not done. Guys, I have to put this phone down for a second. I'm going to keep talking. I got to light this pipe for a second. It's not done. We know it's not done. We know it's not done. And so we need to have a little bit of an update, I think. I've been feeling this for a while, and I've been thinking, like, do we do it here? Do we do it on Spaces? Maybe we do it on Spaces. Spaces aren't recordable. But anyway, obviously, I don't think I have to tell you guys there are certain topics we're not going to go into for reasons that should be obvious. I don't have to really talk about that too much with you, I hope. But I want to give you guys an idea of where we're at right now. So I made some tweets the other day just about the broader timeline. Okay, the broader timeline. And I know that some people are going to look at this stuff and they're like, the timeline. What is Pat Stedman doing talking about timelines? And the truth is that we don't really know exactly how the timeline is going to play out. Because if there's anything that we learned, it's that there are two sides, and both sides have their own role to play in whatever timeline gets manifested. Okay? There's higher probabilities of one thing or another. And so I think that the first thing that we need to go into, I got to light this pipe again. I think the first thing we have to go into is why we're where we're at right now. What changed? Why did things shift? And I think if we're being honest here, a lot of us have taken the last couple of months as lull, which is ending. I think we can all be honest. The lull is ending. If we're looking at what's going on right now, I think we can be honest that the lull is ending. Okay. Haitian president assassinated. I think a lot of us know what kind of shenanigans went down in Haiti. Of course, we don't know for certain exactly what occurred, but a lot of coincidences. Same day, the Pennsylvania is doing a full forensic audit of the three main counties, urban counties in the country, in the state rather. So, again, let me just light this thing up. Crazy stuff. But I do want to talk about this timeline stuff, because I think the timeline stuff is very important. So without going into anything that actually occurred on the 6th, I think we can agree that on the 6th, that timeline shifted. Timeline shifted on the 6th. And a decision was made that day by President Trump. And from that point onward, things changed. Things changed. Now, we had 4 years of... I recommend people check out John Here to Help if you have not checked out this account on Twitter. It's a very important account to check out. Legitimate whistleblower. There had been a 4-year narrative about the creation of that Trump would never leave office, and that things were... that basically this attempt to incite a civil war, and agent provocateurs, all sorts of stuff. We had this sort of situation, let's put it that way. And timeline shifted. And a lot of people were very upset about that. And they figured that, well, there should have been a fighting. People should have stood up. More things should have happened. But am I a medium? I'm not a medium. I have some intuition, but I'm not a medium. You guys can tell I'm trying not to really go too deep into this section. I'm trying just to bypass this section as best I can. Because I have practical considerations to not really go too much into it. But suffice to say that there was a decision made that it was better to cede the administrative aspects of government than to continue to fight on that ground and bring the country into what would inevitably become a civil war. Okay? I want you guys to understand this for a second, because a lot of people in their arrogance think that Trump like abandoned us, or that this whole thing was where we're at right now is because people stopped caring, people stopped fighting. Trump loved the country enough to not put us through that. And so what we're seeing happening now is we're seeing the public wake up to the reality of what would happen. It's a dangerous strategy that these so-called white hats have decided to enact. And I don't blame them for doing it. I think it was the right decision. And I can say this better than anybody else as somebody who has to suffer the consequences of that. But they are trying to rely on the American people to understand their God-given rights and for them to gradually wake up. Okay? And there's a really reasonable point to be made that, you guys here in the Code Cabal last year, all the things that we went into, we were awake, we were aware, but most of the American public was not. And even the people who voted for Trump, that solid majority that voted for Trump, they were not aware of the full level of what was going on. And it would have been very, very easy to manipulate that information and to create a cascade effect that would have, whether we quote unquote won or lost, this is what we call a victory where nobody wins, because we don't want families, we don't want friends divided against each other. So there was this sort of strategy, which I would have likened it to ceding the high ground, and effectively enacting a siege around that high ground. And so you could say that in a certain sense, the deep state controls that high ground right now. Now, do they control the full apparatus? There's a lot of stuff, and I got, we talked a lot back in the day about these various people who were, who have intel and everything. Charlie Ward, for instance, doesn't know anything about what's going on. He maybe has some information, but people who are not directly involved in it don't know what's going on. Nobody really knows exactly what's going on. And one of the big tests right now is that we have to begin to pay a lot more attention to our own inner narrative, our own sense of self, and where do we really feel this is going? There's plenty of clues out there. But unless you're directly involved with something, unless the person you're talking about is directly involved, you don't really know exactly. They probably don't have really good information. And so you have people like Charlie Ward who are going out and they're talking about like patriots in control. It's all pantomime. It's not a fucking pantomime. Okay. It's not a fucking pantomime. It's not a joke. There is very serious evil going on, and the war is far from won in this density. If you look from a higher density, if you look at like 5D, if you look at above that, yeah, we are doing well. We're going to win. The victory is inevitable. But if you're looking at the 3D reality right now, we still have more time to go. And we're going to talk about what's going to happen these next couple of years, what I speculate is in store for us these next couple of years. But suffice to say, we're in for, if you think things have been crazy so far, they're going to get crazier. They are going to get crazier. Okay. But all this stuff, like people like Charlie Ward saying it's all one, it's not one. It's not over. The strategy here is that the American public will gradually wake up to what's happening. You see this audit in Maricopa County, you better bet your ass, that the reason that the Arizona Senate got the balls to go ahead with this extremely detailed forensic audit is because aspects of the military approached them. Now, I say aspects of the military because do not think for a second that the military is completely out of the purview of Biden. Okay, that's not what's going on right now. That's not what's going on right now. What's going on is the very high upper strata of the military, the people who control the nuclear codes, the people who control the higher level ballistic defense of the country, that they have not signed off on what happened. And they are in the process with their allies. I mean, if you really want to look at this accurately, there are factions throughout all different branches of government, including the military, that are vying against each other. It's not this whole thing when you say the military, people are trying to say Trump's commander in chief and Biden's president, that there's this kind of like dual president situation. And that's true in some sense, but it's also just a situation where it's a lot more complicated even than that. Because there's factions within these different branches. You could say the NSA is much more in favor of Trump and parts of the military are more in favor of Biden. Okay? So it's not, we have to stop thinking in these sort of black and white linear terms, and we have to stop thinking that things are going to happen in a timeline that we can exactly predict. Because what we have is we have one group has an intention, and then we have another group has an intention. And those two groups' intentions go against each other. Now, I can tell you this, okay? I can tell you this very confidently. The dark side is very afraid. And the dark side is very afraid because the awakening cannot be stopped. Can't be stopped, okay? If they were to take the foot off the gas, if they were to be magnanimous and pull back, well, that would be an indication that they weren't as evil as they are, and the population would wake up organically and they would lose their power. They lose their edge. They lose their advantage. But on the same token, if they were to push forward with it, if they were to push forward, which is what they're doing right now, with their plans, rapid fire, and we're going to get to some of those plans, more and more of the population is going to wake up. Inevitable, okay? We have had right now, we had the first wave with COVID. We had the second wave with the election. We're about to have the third waves coming up. And it's a combination of, you could say stuff from the jab, right? That stuff's, I'm not going to talk too much about that because the truth is at this point, we're not really preventing people. Before there was like this purpose to warn people. At this point, people have pretty much made their choices and the information's out there. I don't feel like I have to really talk about it so much, but yeah, the deaths and the injuries are a real thing and they will increase. The only thing I'll say is that there's a lot of placebos in the mix as well. So not everybody who's gotten it has gotten the exact thing that they thought they were going to get, which is a good thing. It's like a Russian roulette kind of situation. But the fraud will be unraveled. We are going to be in for a really colossal fight this next year. It's going to be, and look, I don't have to talk about my own situation, but it's going to be a big fight this entire year. There is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff coming out. J&J is not a placebo. It's not a placebo. All of them are bad. They're all bad. There are placebos mixed in with each of the batches, but I can tell you for sure, based on people in my contacts, that J&J is not a placebo. Okay, there's actually people who think that the viral vector ones are worse. I'm not sure I believe that, but doesn't matter. Those are choices people made, and look, you can see right now it's not going to end. They're going to blame the people who didn't get it on the new strains that they're creating, and I don't think we're going to see some very good things happen this fall when it comes to that. There's a reason I got out of New York City. There's a lot of reasons I got out of New York City, but one of them was the fact that I don't really feel like the city is going to be a very good place based on what happens in the fall. Let's put it that way. Now, we also have the fact that they are trying to crash the economy. Now, people have been seeing the inflation numbers are going up. This stuff is going to really hit probably in the fall. White hats are not going to protect this stuff. Okay, they're not going to protect it. We are going to experience a massive economic crash. We're going to see food prices rise. There is a plan. Again, depends what is the intention versus what's going to actually happen. The intention is to cause massive shortages. Now, how bad those shortages are going to depend on the response from the white hats and their little duel with this. But it's going to be rough. It's going to be very, very rough, I think, regardless. And the economy is definitely going to crash, and I don't see a prevention of that happening. You have people like Mike Lindell saying that Trump's going to be back in August. There's no chance Trump's back in August. There's no chance. I would be confident saying that Trump will be back in a year if these audits go forward, depending on what happens. It could even be a little bit more than a year. Okay? I know some people watching this are going to think I'm insane, but these audits, as they come out, the proof of the fraud is going to be incontrovertible. Now, are there civilian ways to resolve this? That remains to be seen. I don't have any authority over these things. I'm just sort of observing. Okay, I'm just sort of observing, hanging out in my house in Jersey. I'm just observing. I have no influence on any of these events, but I'm just trying to make it aware for people that if the population starts to reach a pretty high percentage, 75% of the population starts to not believe that the government's legitimate. Because let's be honest here, the government pretty much seems to be entirely motivated by trying to attack its own population. It's really hard to interpret the moves of this administration as anything other than hostile to the American people. They are operating as if a Manchurian candidate, as if a foreign power had control over aspects of the civilian administration and were attempting to, and yeah, Steve, it's a good point. It really is corporations that control things. But this is really what we're looking at right now. We are looking at this kind of situation. So people are saying, and look, I'm the first to admit this. I'm going to relight the pipe, by the way. I'm the first to admit this stuff. Okay? First to admit. I was naive. I was naive about this. I was naive about how much physical power the White Hats had. And I was naive about how fast things would happen. I do not right now believe that we are going to be done with what we consider the overt, so to speak, aspects of the cabal until 2024. And I don't think we're going to be on offense to 2023. I genuinely think that you have to look at this year. Like, if this is World War II, this is 1942. All right. I'm going to really roll with this analogy because I think it's important. Because when we say the war is going to be won in 1942, the war would be won by the Allies. The Japanese military understood that. Okay, many in the German military understood that as well. There was almost no chance that the Axis could win the war in 1942. However, on a surface level, they had a lot of advantages. The Japanese had just attacked Pearl Harbor. They had, the U.S. Navy was in a the U.S. was kind of on the back foot, and then you had in Europe. I mean, you had the Nazis had advanced very, very far into Russia. They were on the gates of Moscow. Okay, so you look at all this stuff, and you could say that, well, the Axis clearly looks like they're winning, but they weren't winning. On a fundamental level, and this is very obvious if you were to look historically speaking, if you were to look into the details, they knew they really couldn't win. They had one chance to take it out, and if they didn't do it, they weren't going to win. We are in the same situation right now, but the reason I say this is that we know we're going to win, but don't pretend that that means that the war's over. Knowing you're going to win does not mean the war is over. Doesn't mean that. Things are going to get a lot worse. I really hope that you guys are prepared for this. This is not an easy fight that we're about to go through over these coming months. Things are going to be very difficult for people. And the good news is that the worse things get, the more people are going to wake up. A lot of people who had, because of the propaganda, supported this regime are now pulling away from it. That's happening in droves. Even the ones who won't admit it, there is a hesitancy. Things don't really feel right. As more information comes out, it's going to be harder and harder. And no, you're not going to get an enthusiastic 80% or whatever, but you will get a number of that magnitude who are eventually ready for things to change and who are not going to oppose it under any circumstances. So, look, the point of this stuff and the reason I wanted to have this COVID cabal is I really want to emphasize we're not like, I love our COVID cabals. We had a really fun time with that stuff, but it's a different mission. Back then, it was about waking people up. And then it was about getting people ready to fight. Maybe there'll be something in the future, but right now, I mean, when I say fight, I mean just simply awareness. To understand your sovereignty as an individual. Don't do anything. I am absolutely under no circumstances inciting anything whatsoever. I don't want you to do anything. I think actually anybody who tells you to do anything, tells you to be violent or tells you to be aggressive, they are clearly agent provocateurs. Do not listen to them. I'm just simply making an observation that the American people are waking up to the fraud that was that election. There's been a lot of frauds and a lot of indignities forced upon the American people, and this is going to be reversed. It will happen. More and more people will wake up, but the waking up for the next wave of people is going to be painful. It's going to be, for a lot of these people, it's going to be based on people that they know being injured from substances. And yeah, so I'm happy to take some questions if you guys have some questions. If I can't answer it, I can't answer it. But you guys are welcome to ask me some questions. Please shoot away at me. Ask some questions, you guys. You guys got some questions? Do it. Good time to do it. Bob, what kind of substances do you inject into yourself? So I know all this stuff. I've been trying to filter through the alternative networks. Most of it's bullshit. Like Charlie Ward, full of shit. Simon Parks is a good person, but I don't really think that he. Look, I think that they're being used. I don't think that they're being used by negative factions, but if you're not directly involved in stuff, you don't really know. And just because you signed an NDA or whatever, people are giving them information, and they'll put out stuff like someone was saying, well, there's a plan to have President Trump back at July 4th at Mount Rushmore. I mean, when you heard that, you would have to be like, are you serious? Are you serious? Like, we have to level up. I don't think that we were wrong to believe what we believed necessarily before, because the timeline changed. Okay, the timeline changed, and that there was a lot of intentions for the things that we saw, and it shifted for the better, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, this is not going to be easy. This is a siege situation, and the cabal is going to fight to the death, and they don't care who they take with them. They're going to take as many people as they can with them, which is why if I can give you guys any recommendation for how to acquit yourself over this period, it's really to focus on being as much in a love vibration as you possibly can, and to be aware of what's going on, but to detach from it. I don't mean like ignore it and pretend it's not happening. I just mean everything has to come as a group. Everything has to come as a group, and it has to come peacefully, because what they want you to do is to be violent, and they want you to be aggressive, and they want you to physically try to fight them, because then that allows them to pigeonhole you into a certain kind of character, which you're not. Okay? So, let's see here. So yeah, I don't know it. I mean, I'm giving you what I think, and you guys should look internally, and you should say, how much is what Pat's saying resonating? Is it resonating? I think that the period from this fall to the next fall is going to be probably the most turbulent period that we have ever faced in our lives. That's what I think. And I can't tell you why that is, except for the fact that I see all this stuff coming to a head. There was a big battle around the election, and then there was a lull while the forces were kind of regrouping. There were some skirmishes. We were mostly in a lull, and now we're about to enter in. You can see it. We're about to enter into a much more aggressive phase again between these two factions. So it's going to get a lot worse. It's going to get a lot worse. So how's the workout? How's the army and the family doing? We're doing great. We just moved out of New York for some of the reasons aforementioned. Also, just really wasn't in resonance. It's becoming difficult to go up there with the baby all the time. So we made the move to get out. We're grounded here until the completion of the legal situation, and feels super relieving to be here, just to be grounded and not to be in flux. And that's one of the reasons that maybe you haven't seen as much from me in June, is because we were just so back and forth throughout that entire month and over this past weekends. How's the workout bodybuilding routine going? It's been going excellent. I'm very fortunate to have Attila's gym nearby. Last 2 weeks, I will admit, I was like solid 2 to 4 times every week. And in the last 2 weeks, with all the constant moving, I haven't been. I just got grounded pretty much yesterday, today, and I'm back in tomorrow. I'm going to start a whole new workout circuit, and I'm looking forward to being able to have like the ability to do that. That's a 5-day-a-week thing. Okay, here's a good question. Do you think the Great Awakening is a great deception? Go right into this. This is a great question, because it actually allows me to segue into the next thing. My dad's just right outside. Okay. So, is a Great Awakening a big deception? No, it's not a big deception. However, Maybe you've seen some stuff going around from the Theosophists. There have been a lot of occult groups who have predicted the Great Awakening because it's an inevitability. And I can tell you guys why it's an inevitability, aside from just sort of prophecy and aside from just what we feel. This planet moves through a section of the galaxy every couple of millennia, and we are moving through. It's a photon belt, and it's filled with very, very high frequency, and actually makes it during this period extremely difficult. Okay, it makes it extremely difficult for lower vibrational consciousness to exist. And so when you have the mind calendar that says, okay, well, the world ended on December 21st, 2021, or sorry, 2012, what that actually was, in fact, was the end of us in a certain section of the galaxy. And we began to enter new energy fields. Consciousness began to rise forward. If you go into all this stuff with Project Looking Glass, what becomes apparent is that they were unable to see beyond 2012. They had all these plans, and they could no longer manipulate things after 2012. There's a lot of people who believe that the assassination of JF Kennedy was another timeline switch. That there was a different timeline that existed with JFK, and then when he was assassinated, that everything kind of got moved. Okay. So, the awakening is inevitable. Now, there is an attempt to manipulate the awakening. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get into this right now, but a lot of you OGs can recall that way back when we were like last summer around this time, we were talking about Elon Musk, and there was a lot of questions like, well, is Elon Musk a good guy or a bad guy? You know, he's making Starlink. Starlink is Space Force. He's not really involved overtly with a lot of the evil things in the cabal, but, you know, he's all about Neuralink and hooking up people, the merging of man and machine. You know, what's the deal with Elon Musk? Well, this is my perspective, and you can check it with yourselves and tell me what you think about that. But we are going to have a situation where after we defeat the cabal in 2024, which is the first beast, we are going to have the second beast. Now, some people have talked about Trump being the second beast, but I don't think Trump's the second beast. Trump is not a technological person who's going to reveal marvels to us. I think that that's going to be Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk has been primed to be part of this second faction of the cabal, which is maybe trying to throw this first wave to the wolves because they see the awakening as inevitable. And so it's like, I've heard it described as, Magenta mentioned it as a double bluff. That, oh no, we know we're all in. Actually, we're not all in. That's down the line. It's really difficult to understand what it's going to look like, because it's going to feel like we won the war, and then there's going to be another fight that happens afterwards. And I think a lot of us, even here, maybe will diverge from each other, because some of us may end up believing in this false light and others will believe in the other. All I can say for people who are looking for guidance is to really pay attention to the fact that at the end of the day, it is our connection to the earth and nature and our humanity that makes us human. And so technology isn't evil, but any sort of assertion that we need to become somewhat mechanical in order to move forward, I think is the trap. And while right now there's the whole thing is science is kind of an enslavement mechanism overtly, it's hurting us. People are being manipulated into self-harm, basically. I think that the second one is they're going to be bribed into it, that they're actually going to be given all these gifts, they're going to be given all these powers, and it's going to be a different level of test. That's down the line. It's not really worth speculating much into right now. It's just worth being aware of. However, our current fight will progress for the next couple of years. Thank you, AJ. Yes, I'm out. I'm out in the sun as much as I possibly can. New Zealand rounding up. Well, that's what they're saying they're going to do. That's their intention. Um, I don't think it's going to get to that point. I don't think it's going to get to that point. You should be prepared for anything. You should have a really clear idea about, you know, what do you stand for? I mean, I know what I stand for. I know where my lines are. You should have an idea of your own. What's the strongest possible argument for Trump was cabal affiliated, Kainos was a double agent? I think that on a 3D level, it's actually impossible to determine that, because, and I understand, I've had many people, close friends of mine, have said, you know, Trump betrayed you guys. Um, Trump didn't care about you guys, blah, blah, blah. All I can tell you, and you're very welcome to say, hey, Pat, um, you're wrong, you're crazy. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. Totally okay if you say that stuff. I've frankly heard a lot worse. It does not feel correct. And I can look at it from a logical perspective. He's not acting like somebody who is working with them, and they're not acting like he's somebody who is on their side. I mean, they hate him. Like, their hate for him is hysterical. And contrast that to Elon Musk, who, like, you know, you get a couple of negative articles here and there about, but ultimately he is a completely bailed out product of the government. Much more of somebody who is like conning us, double agent. I don't, I just don't feel in my heart that, and given the amount of risks that he took in the amount of people that he woke up in the process of that, it just, I have not heard anybody present a convincing argument for it. And in fact, most of the people who talk about Trump being a double agent actually just think that we're screwed. They actually believe that it's all over. I don't believe that for a second. I know it's not true. I know it's not true. Although I'm also at peace with the fact that if it was true, I don't have anything to worry about in the next life. But we're in a good position. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. The fear on their side is so extreme. It's so extreme. The fact that we're even talking about this, the fact that we're aware of it, that many people being aware of it, that's not how they would have wanted to play it. This is happening because it was an inevitability that it would happen, and they're trying to mitigate the damage. All right, let's see. What else we got here? What else we got here? There's no chance the cabal allow more and more audit results to be released. Well, the truth is that they can't stop it. And they've been trying to stop it, but they can't stop it. Now, they had a lot of their media lackeys criticizing the Arizona audit, trying to say it was weak and it had problems. I think it's one of the reasons that they're doing a recount on their own, because when this stuff is released, it has to be completely airtight. Has to be completely airtight, because it has to be able to withstand every single attack that's going to happen from every different level. The cabal wants to stop it, but they can't. My perspective is that what they're doing is they're trying to buy as much time as possible. They're trying to do as much damage as possible. They know it's not going to work. They know it's not going to work. They know they don't really have the ability to hold their position because they are under siege. They're under siege. Every day, more American people get fed up. I can see around here, I can see how the signs change in my neighborhood, which is very liberal. I can see how the signs change over time. Not just talking explicitly like political campaign signs. I can see that there is a shift in the energy. There's a shift in the energy. There's a shift in how people act. People are really embarrassed. I think that you know, a lot of us are very intuitive and we think about all sorts of crazy stuff, but you know, we kind of knew that the connections of the Biden family and all this other stuff. And so whatever they did, it wouldn't matter. But think of it from the perspective of censors. You have somebody who's completely senile, who's whispering, I was the one who did. You have people like, you have somebody who's the president of the United States, so to speak, and who is doing this stuff and who's acting like he's completely senile. For us, that may not mean that much because we were already there. But for a regular American person whose main concern is the respect of this country, this is like, it is humiliating. It is so absolutely humiliating. And remember, this wasn't a thing like he was elected and then he became senile. It's that he was elected with the most votes ever of any presidential candidate, and it was the most secure election in history, and he's senile. The damage is starting to be felt. It's starting to be seen. It's starting to be felt. And the giant will awaken. Okay? We'll emphasize again, not inciting anything whatsoever. I'm just simply observing how the consciousness, in my perspective, of the population is changing and will change. And once the economy goes, and that's a requirement because they have to tank the economy, they're not able to bring the economy up because of their plans, because they have to change the way capitalism and the market affects here. Let me give you an example of something that may happen. They are not going to be able to shut down the entire United States because you have governors like DeSantis who will just say fuck off, basically, if they try to do this. And so what are they going to do? They have to keep the shutdowns more or less. They can't give people more than a couple of weeks for a couple of reasons. One, it destroys businesses when you do that, when you have that kind of unpredictability. But the other part of it is that you want to have people in a position where they're going to be impoverished and dependent on the state. You need to break down the commerce aspect. And in the United States, one of the big things is interstate commerce. And so it seems very likely to me that they may use these distinct outbreaks, and they'll use some of these big cities that are Democratic controlled to shut down those cities and say that there's an outbreak here. Nothing can come in or out. And so there'll be some shutdowns in those cities. It'll be dramatic. And other states can't say anything about it because it's not affecting them. They don't have to create a mask mandate, but the people in that city do. But more than that, all the trade into that city is now shut off. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but that seems like an intention. And of course, we're going to have more crazy weather phenomena. But just relating this again, it's going to get lit, guys. It's going to get lit. So let's see here. What do you think the evidence from the audits will do to the country? I want people to know that it's truth. Well, the audits will wake up the country because the country's being primed to believe that there's a problem because the government is not acting on behalf of the country. Okay? So people already thought that that was the case. They already believed that there was a problem with the election. But when this stuff comes out, and it'll come out virally, the media will not be able to they will not be able to stop the information flow. Okay? They won't be able to stop it. It will become something that is talked about person to person. Another reason, of course, why they want to shut down things is because people will communicate. Like, why do they want to shut down churches? Why do they want to shut down sports leagues and stuff? Because that's where people talk, right? American Revolution, the American Revolution was planned in churches. Churches were the place that people met to discuss the situation. Okay. They're not going to be able to stop it. As things get worse and worse, people are going to be looking for, wait a minute, how did this get so bad so quickly? Suddenly, those of us who are on these COVID cabals and etc. are not going to look so crazy. Because pretty much everybody is going to know, at least within 1 degree of separation, somebody who's been injured by the V, someone who's going to be injured, and there's going to be all this economic stuff. And look, let me put it this way: a third of the population will never get it, and 1/3 would get it regardless. At this point, regardless of anything, they were enthusiastic. But there's another third in the middle, and maybe it's more than a third. Maybe it's closer to like 40 or 50% who got it because they're reasonable individuals, not stupid, not crazy. They're just reasonable individuals who, when the government says things need to be shut down because of this reason, they understand it, they trust the government, and then when the government says, okay, well, we have this disease, and so here's the cure, and then they get the cure, they get the vaccine for it, and that they get that, and then things are good, right? And that they believe that they're thinking very linearly like that. And so you could tell them, no, it's not good for you, don't get it. You could tell them all sorts of things, but they'd say, well, look, they're not primed to believe you. Doesn't mean that they're crazy people. Doesn't mean that they're in fear consciousness all the time. There is that, maybe 20 to 30% or so that is in fear consciousness. But these people aren't. They just literally want to get on with their lives, and they're compliant. Now, if those people have complied with everything, they've been good citizens, and then they're told, well, actually, hey, well, you got it, but actually it doesn't even work. And now there's a new variant. Maybe we have to get another one, and we have to go back to everything again. And they're like, and then you look at it like the variant, well, what has the variant actually done? You are going to see these people wake up. Now, they will try to blame the people who didn't get it. They'll do that. No question about it. They'll try to do it. But how successful is that going to be? I think that the most adamant people that we will see in the next phase are going to be people who got it. Okay? Because they're going to be angry at being duped. They're going to be angry at being manipulated. And a lot of the young people in particular, I think, are going to wake up from it because they want to get back to their lives. Right? They want to live. All right, let's keep going down here. Will, you did miss it, but Will, you were in New York, so when you come back to the area, we'll do it. We'll do it in South Jersey. This whole thing about Trump promoting the stuff, it's anybody's guess. The best explanation I've heard, which doesn't explain why he's doing it right now, but the best explanation I heard before had to do with the emergency use authorization and the fact that by pushing it under emergency use, it became optional and that it involved some level of intervention in the process. But the truth is, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't think anybody's come up with a good answer for that. And it's another reason for you to not trust anybody as an external authority figure, including Trump, in that for you to trust your internal guidance. I will say that I haven't really seen him promoting it that much. I have seen him mention it on an occasion or two. Maybe I've missed things because I don't really pay attention to the news as much because what's the point? I get the highlight reel. So let's see here. Yeah, Elon Musk's girlfriend is a witch. So I mean, look at her. I mean, she's a witch. She's 100% a witch. False slate from a false right. There's been a lot of big proofs, Elvis. There's been a lot of them, but are people gonna? Look, those who know, and we're all patient. Doesn't matter what happens. We're all patient. We're all waiting. I mean, I'm not trying to be provocateur here. We are literally waiting for the next phase to wake up, and we're trying to alchemize right now what the dark is going to do as a big awakening moment. That's really what we're at right now. How do you ease into waking up a normie, especially with big medicine not being for humanity? I'll tell you about something with a friend. Okay, I'm not going to answer it directly because I think it depends on the normie. But I have a really good friend, and she was very, very much in the programming, and I just happened to come across her and a bunch of other people. They were having an argument about the border, and she's an immigrant from Latin America, and she was really like, understandably, this issue was felt very personal for her. Okay, so she was arguing at that point against restrictions because she was sort of thinking of herself with this thing. And I wasn't really involved in the conversation. I just kind of made an offhand comment about how, oh yeah, well, the border being open, it's like, it's a big vector for human trafficking. Like, a lot of the reason they want the border open is for human trafficking. I was like, kind of what? And I was like, yeah, it's like, when the border is open, you can pull kids across the border, and that's a big reason that people want it open. I mean, why would anyone want the border open? They want it open for human trafficking. And I didn't argue. I just left. Now, I didn't actually know that made a big impact, but months later, when she woke up, she told me that that was actually very important. And so what I would advise is that when you see a situation, a vector for somebody, if you can, without any sort of polarization, just sort of throw out something for them that disrupts a pattern, later on when they hit the right catalyst, they'll remember it. Okay, there's a lot of things that I have in my own awakening process that are, I remembered things that people told me a while ago and that affected me, but I didn't agree with. I was like, well, that can't be true. But I couldn't disregard it. So I would recommend that. You don't want to argue. There is no point in getting an argument with literally 95 to 99% of people. There's like a small percentage of people who you might be able to logically reason with, but even these people, when people want to argue with you, it's an emotional thing. Just, agree to disagree with them and say, hey, look, totally get it. I know you feel this way. We'll see what happens. You could throw out a couple things, but really don't engage with it. What do I think about the government coming door to door? I think it shows their plan. I don't think it's going to come up about as anything. That does not mean you should not take it seriously. I'm just saying that I am not afraid of it at all. Certainly not in America. Trump back on the warpath, holding rallies again, 100%. Yeah, he's out there and he's unafraid. He ain't afraid. Do you really think we can sustain good awakened people suffering for that long? Yeah, I do think we can, because I think that, look, this is a really great point I'm going to bring into it. I'm going to light this pipe again. This is really, really important, guys. Really important. Okay. The reason we're in this mess, is because we become complacent. Okay? We have become complacent. that includes the awakened people, because most of the awakened people believe that they can just like go in 5D and forget about all this stuff and they don't have to do anything. Bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Okay? We lost this country because we stopped caring about it. We took it for granted. We stopped doing the fundamental ethos. We look at the founding fathers as these saviors who did everything. We look at Trump as a savior, and we stop looking at ourselves as founding fathers. We stop looking at us as people who are going to go up to school board meetings and we're going to get, CRT policies changed. We stop looking at ourselves as individuals who can change this country, who can change this planet. So the awakened people are on some level taking on the karma of the rest of the planet. But on the other level, they are the leaders and they're suffering, but they're suffering because they are resisting their role in the physical. Okay? I will just say this. Almost nobody out there can impugn me and tell me that how can we suffer for like right now? How can we keep suffering? It's suffer a lot worse. It's worth suffering a lot worse. No one is coming to save you. They are coming to assist you. Okay? There are many people who will come to assist you, but no one's coming to save you. You are your own savior. So you came here, if you're an awakened person, you are here right now because it was your job, it was your soul contract to flip the consciousness of this planet, to bring us to a great awakening. You can deal with more than you're dealing with right now. You can do it. You can deal with a lot more. We have been through a lot more in the past. In a certain sense, this is nothing. It's very spiritually and emotionally draining. But in a past life, someone blew a whistle and you had to run out of a trench and face machine gun and mortar and artillery fire. Okay? Pretty much guaranteed to get slaughtered in most cases. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Okay? We can do it. If we have it all, why not pull the trigger? People haven't awakened by now. I don't see it happening. People we're intuitive, so we're sharp. We wake up quick. Other people, they really need a lot more physical experience to shift. It's difficult for me to accept that too, because to me it's like it's fucking obvious, but people need to feel it. It needs to be in their face. They're not able to see the patterns, especially when they're under hypnotic trance. We could drop it all and we could go into a civil war. Could break people. Because we could drop it, but there's still a lot of assets that they have. I mean, people try to claim that the dark side doesn't exist. Who killed Haiti's president? They're still who killed that Dutch investigator who was investigating government corruption? I mean, they are killing people left and right. These are not people who are like done. They're not done yet. You drop that card and you whiff, it's completely over. Wano Savin said it himself, and he has his things, but he said this correct a while back. It's Casino Royale. One side takes all the pot. Better to wait to make sure that you really have everything locked up than it is to say, well, probably that's enough. Yeah, well, I believe it, man. South Jersey has it too, to be honest. American State Assembly Project. I'll check that out. That's important. Can't believe we're back with the COVID cabal. Well, enjoy this. This is just it's just as far as I'm concerned right now a one-off. I mean, this is not intended to be a big ol'. Faux tweeter, I did not. Oh, do I think I didn't see your question? Do you think the EBS will still be used at some point? Um, I do think the EBS will be used, but I think that the EBS, look, I have to be really careful about this because, you know, I really do not want anybody to construe what I'm about to say as incitement, because it's not incitement. But based on what I've read about this and based on what I understand, my sense is that when the population gets to a really critical point of awareness about the situation, that if the civilian administration will not intervene, the military will intervene at that point. And at that point, I think the EBS will be used. At that point, okay? They're not going to use the EBS now because it would be construed as a coup. It would be construed wrongly by the population, could be disrupted. There's a lot of reasons. But even aside from all the kind of practical considerations, I really strongly believe that maybe this wasn't like a direct plan, but we're in this position right now because we are supposed to be the ones who move us to the new age. It's not like Trump, it's not the white hats. Like, we are the white hats. We are the plan. It is an awakened population. If somebody frees us, we'll never appreciate freedom. Think about this for a second in the United States. It used to be that it was a normal thing for individuals who had jobs to be a part of their community, their town, you know, education board, run for mayor, run for state assembly. It was important. And then as they overworked us, as they broke down the family structure, people stopped caring about that. And little by little, you had politics on a higher level, completely filled by compromised individuals. And the people who got into it were dorks who were easy to compromise, of course, because they had status insecurities. You didn't have any more successful people get into it. More and more successful people said, well, why would I get involved with politics and deal with being smeared by the increasing smear campaigns that were happening against politicians? Why not buy them myself? Or why not bypass the entire system and just become rich enough and escape? So that's how we have society degenerate. If you want to save your country, get involved locally. It is the biggest thing you can do. Okay? The online space is a great space to connect with people, but the biggest thing that you can possibly do is get involved in your local politics. Get involved with your community. Because the new world is decentralization, because the new world is individuals. Individuation means decentralization. Okay? That's what it is. What am I drinking? Did the Clintons get the salmon? Salmon was smart and hit the road, got out of this mess. I'm just drinking a limoncello. Just a limoncello to top off the night. It's a very nice hot summer night. I've looked everywhere and still don't know what the cabal is. I hear it all the time. Well, the cabal is it's a group of different families. criminal families. You can get esoteric with it. It's not really important. The way to just describe it fundamentally is that it's a group of different groups, families that work together, um, not because they like each other, but because they are psychopaths and they have similar aims of control, and they work together to control us. And I think this is a good way to close here, um, which is that the reason we're going to win is as the pressure mounts, and you're already seeing it, they're going to start to betray each other. It's going to happen. They will start to betray each other because none of them want to get caught. Now, if you are dealing with people who have integrity, they will never betray anybody else involved with them. They just won't do it. They won't do it out of principle. They won't do it out of conscience. But if you're dealing with a criminal, they'll betray that person in 2 seconds. The only reason they wouldn't is because they've been blackmailed, which is why these groups operate by mutual blackmail. That's the whole thing where one of them like kills or rapes a kid. The point of that is not necessarily that the person even necessarily at that moment wanted to do it. It's that by going through that ritual together, none of them are safe. They're all screwed. So they have to work together. They have to work together because if they don't work together, they both go. That works for the high level people, but the low level people, maybe not. Maybe the low level people consider that to be an unworthy proposition. Maybe the low level people determine that they're at loose ends and that they would rather rat on the rest. You're going to see a lot of this stuff come. You're going to see a lot of this stuff come. As for this stuff with gold and crypto, I don't know the answer to this stuff, but maybe we'll do that next time. Talk about gold and crypto. Anyway, guys, I am very appreciative of all of you, the OGs who have hung around through all this. I think that, you know, what we had for those 9 months was just like, what a crazy time. And we'll do some more of these as we go on. We'll do a couple more, but nothing like before. This is really just like, it's a special. I wanted to give you guys something to brace for what's ahead. There's no point in fixating on the various new news details and stuff. It's all going to be revealed. Bet on that. All right, I'll see you later.